Welcome. My name is Larry Miller, and I am the worship associate this morning, and part of the team that is working to record and stream this service to you, wherever you may be. We are an inclusive congregation that welcomes you as you are, inclusive of all your identities, complexities, and situations. We welcome your whole self, even if it isn't fully assembled, because we recognize that we are all a work in progress, and that we are all in this together. The service is being posted on our YouTube page, so folks can watch it again later. Feel free to share with your friends. Please join me in our opening words. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, and serve humankind in fellowship. For these high purposes do we unite and worship. Life is a gift for which we are grateful. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and the mysteries of this great gift.
Welcome. Welcome to this day, this hour, this place, this body. Together, we will answer the call to love. Together, we will create a thing of great beauty. Together, we will find the sacred in the spaces in between. Together, we will worship. Welcome. And now, kids, come a little closer. Here's a situation for you to consider. What if you met a new friend and you went to go play with them? That sounds like fun. But what if your new friend always decided what and how you would play together? So if you decided to sing a song together, your new friend would decide which song you would sing. Or if you were going to play a game, your friend would pick the game. Or if you're going to watch a movie, you guessed it, your friend would choose the movie. And if you said something like, I know a fun song, would you like to learn it? And your new friend might say something like, that's okay, I'm more comfortable with the songs I already know. Or if you said, I have a fun game that my cousins taught me, you want to play? And your friend might say, oh, I know that game, but I play by different rules. Let's play using my rules. And then they always manage to win? How would this feel after a while? Would you want to keep playing with them? Even if they had a really nice house or a fun yard? Would you really have a good time always doing only what they wanted to do? I'm asking you to consider this situation because sometimes we will meet folks who have a hard time making room for other people's ideas. Sometimes we'll have friends who only seem to like us if we do things exactly the way they do things. It's as if they only want to be around people who are exactly like them. Can you see how that might be tough sometimes? Because everyone is a little bit different, and people sing differently, and people like different movies and different games. What do you think happens when a person doesn't let other people choose the songs or the games or the movies? What do you think happens to that person? What do you think happens to their friends? I'm asking you these questions because you are a very thoughtful person and you probably have some pretty interesting ideas, and I'd like to hear them. So I hope someday soon we'll find a time to meet on Zoom and you can tell me your thoughts, because I'd really like to hear them. And I want you to know, I think you're pretty remarkable, and I look forward to seeing you and learning from you soon. Okay. Take care. At this time in our service, we recognize the joys and concerns of the community. And first is a joy. Rocky and Stacy Terry chose to celebrate their 10 years of marriage by renewing their wedding vows this week. So, congratulations to Stacy and Rocky and their beautiful children, Chucky and Raven. This is a candle of concern. This week we saw the anniversary of the Pulse nightclub shooting. This was a time when many of our friends and family in the LGBTQ community were targeted and made to feel unsafe. Many were people of color. All of them were precious, and so we mourn. And here is a final candle also to encourage the ongoing work of change through the Black Lives Matter push. It is not just a movement, it is change. And now, I light one final candle for all of the joys and the concerns which are deeply felt but not shared. We want you to know we are with you.
Please join me in saying these words together. Our spiritual community lives courage, nurtures wonder, inspires justice, and includes all.
And now, let us take a moment to follow our breath into those places that we have rushed over all week. With each breath, I invite you to go deeper and find that part of your own center that needs inspiration. Breathing in, breathing out. As a child of this world, your bones are knitted from calcium that has passed from seashell to limestone to you. As a child of this world, the very oceans pulse in your veins. As a child of this world, the oxygen you breathe was created by trees long ago and just outside your doors. And that is why, when we breathe, we are breathing in all of creation. Breathing in, breathing out. Blessed be.
In honor of Father's Day this month, I want to play this song that I wrote for my daughter Jacqueline. It's called Daughter. I don't feel like it's quite complete yet, but here we go. Before you were born, the sound of your heartbeat gave rhythm to a song buried deep in my soul. Before you could speak, the sound of your laughter brought music to the world that will play ever after. Before you could walk, the goddess was dancing, singing your name to the trees. A daughter has come, with sunlight in your hair and starlight in your eyes. You stepped into the world, both innocent and wise, with courage to spare, fierce and defiant, the spirit of your mother, so self-reliant, with eyes open wide, the future before you, destiny firm in your hands, a daughter has come.
When all the people of the world love, then the strong will not overpower the weak. The many will not oppress the few. The wealthy will not mock the poor. The honored will not disdain the humble, and the cunning will not deceive the simple.
When we studied Unitarian Universalist history in seminary, everybody found their favorite 19th century minister. Some folks really loved the Reverend Octavius Frothingham, who truly has the coolest name, and he was a transcendentalist radical. Other folks really enjoyed learning about Olympia Brown, who was the first woman to be ordained by any denomination in the United States. And we really loved hearing about all of the courageous Unitarians and Universalists like the Reverend Theodore Parker, who wrote fiery sermons calling for the abolition of slavery, and in response to death threats, wrote those sermons with a pistol on his desk. It was the Reverend Parker that Dr. King was quoting about the moral arc of the universe bending towards justice. Now, we like to think that these people were of courage, fighting against forces outside of their churches, but in truth, their greatest challenges were usually the people sitting in their own pews. For all of our years, as Unitarians and Universalists and Unitarian Universalists, we have struggled to actually live up to our espoused theologies, and we have failed again and again. And we might yet fail once more. First, let me explain some history. Back in the 19th century, New England, there were not many enslaved people living in Boston, but much of the wealth of Boston was tied to slavery. Many of the educated elite citizens who made up the base of Boston's Unitarian congregations, they had made their wealth from the holdings in the South and the Caribbean. Molasses, rum, sugar, cotton, all made the Boston elite very wealthy. What? You think they were trading maple syrup and potatoes? So while they did not actually hold the whips, they paid and profited from the people who held them. Once, when a fugitive slave had been captured in Boston, the abolitionist William Lloyd Garrison wrote that the bells in the Congregational, Methodist, and Universalist churches rang in protest, but noted that the bell on the Unitarian church, clogged with cotton, would not sound. And this is why, when Unitarian ministers grew increasingly vocal in calling for the abolition of slavery, the people that they offended the deepest were often the people sitting in the prestigious front pews. That took some theological and intestinal fortitude. But even as they called for an end to slavery, many of our beloved forebearers, including Reverend Theodore Parker, still held deeply racist attitudes. It would have been hard for them not to hold these prejudices because the entire society was saturated in mistruths about race. As individuals, they were corrupted beyond their beloved reason. Following the Civil War and for much of the 20th century, the Unitarians were seriously ambivalent about racial equality and justice. And when I say ambivalent, I don't mean indifferent. I mean that they simultaneously held competing, even opposing attitudes about how and when and where and even if they should be working to create a more equitable society for people of darker skin. The Universalists of the early 20th century were not doing much better. While they did hold that all humans possess inherent worth, they generally failed at sincerely including African Americans in their congregations. The ambivalence of the Unitarians was evident in the way that their words and their deeds frequently did not agree. Back in the 1940s and 50s, a man by the name of Lon Ray Call, he was responsible for the creation of hundreds of small fellowships, including this one. And he also discouraged recognition of an African American Unitarian fellowship that had sprung up in Cincinnati. His reason for not including them in the association, it was in the wrong neighborhood. Indeed, many of the new fellowships he planted were established in communities that had sundown laws or were legally segregated. that our building here in Amarillo is in the southeast side of town rather than in the northeast or in the north, even north of I-35, probably no accident. By the time that the two denominations, the Unitarians and the Universalists, by the time they had consolidated in 1961, they had each generated mountains of words, rivers of words about the need for racial equality in their churches and in the country. And since words were their comfort zone, the leaders of the new denomination continued issuing fresh reports and resolutions on the matter. They were perfectly aware that few Unitarian Universalist congregations actually had many African American members, and yet they were alternately baffled and disappointed that earnest hand-wringing had failed to change the statistics. And at the same time, as more African Americans moved into our larger cities, many of our urban congregations followed white flight out into the suburbs. Then the civil rights era surged and crested, and the young denomination with deep roots still found itself also tossed about and crashing. In 1965, some 100 UU ministers answered Dr. King's call for support and went to Selma. While 3 of them were walking to dinner one evening in Alabama, they were attacked by white segregationists who beat them, killing the Reverend James Reeb. At that same time, Viola Liuzza, a Unitarian Universalist congregant from my home church in Detroit, she also traveled there and was also killed. In response to these deaths, the UUA's Board of Trustees joined in the march in Selma. Yet for every one minister who showed up, there were more who stayed home and who preached patience over action. As a result, we were not fully sanctified by the blood of Reeb and Liuzza. And while we like to point to them, these martyrs, and all of the resolve and resolution of our leaders, our denomination still continued to struggle right along with the rest of the country. Struggling to figure out how and when and where and if we could truly live into our theology of inherent worth. And like their abolitionist predecessors, every UU minister who spoke up for racial equality was met with more than a few stony faces in the pews who quietly resolved to remove that troublemaker from their pulpit. Then there was a terrible moment in 1968 when 2 factions in our denomination, both calling for greater involvement of African Americans in our movement, began pulling in different directions. One side was seeking racial unity and integration, while the other side was calling for greater empowerment of African Americans in the denomination. The UUA promised a big pile of money to one over the other, which embittered many. But then the following year, it had to go back on its promise when it was revealed that financial mismanagement had nearly bankrupted the denomination, and so nothing substantive took place. 50 years later, here we are. Still majority white, mostly white, predominantly white, and the percentage of people of color in our pews has barely increased after years of dedicated hand-wringing. A couple of years ago, people of color active in our denomination started noticing that they were frequently asked to volunteer at the denominational level. Quite an honor, but they also noticed that they were not as frequently hired for denominational staff positions. This, in part, is what led to what I call the kaboom of 2017. That was a moment when UUA executives chose to hire a very nice white man over an equally qualified woman of color to oversee the southern region. Y'all might have missed the kaboom, but it prompted the resignation of several key executives, including the president, Reverend Peter Morales, because they realized that they had, probably unconsciously, perpetuated a system that favored white men. And yes, it showed that that unconscious bias can even occur among leaders of color if the whole system prefers it. After a system-wide appraisal, it was noted that to truly have a denomination whose words and actions matched, the UUA would need to be more intentional about building diversity. And now, our UUA is actively working to hire more people of color, more Indigenous people, more Black people, more LGBTQIA people to be our leaders and staff in order to disrupt the old system. Naturally, a backlash has sprung up. Every few months, I am invited to sign a petition to unseat the current UUA board over this disruption. There have been some real unpleasant things said. Here's how I interpret the current backlash efforts, and honestly, they are pretty much exclusively coming from white Unitarian Universalists. They're basically saying, it's okay for people of color to be here for diversity, but we don't want to have to change one thing about ourselves or our practices to make them feel welcome or engaged. They only want to sing the songs and play the games that they're comfortable with. People lashing back have been defending these positions by saying that they are being more rational and more principled than the leaders of the UUA. And that's a really neat trick, to claim that one is more rational, more courageous, more principled than their adversary. But it's a shabby trick when one does not also acknowledge their own emotional investment in their argument. Besides, that's not how diversity works. Diversity is not about keeping everything the same while just sprinkling on top some accents. Diversity is really about changing up things to reduce the barriers, to reduce the harm that have repeatedly met people of color who try to come to our congregations, including me. How many times has my multiracial identity been erased by my own church because it prefers whiteness? Too many times. And besides, that is not how true beloved community works. A beloved community is a place where people come to be seen, come to be uplifted, welcomed, and transformed. If you're coming to this fellowship determined to remain the same, you're missing the point. The point of this place is to change. We are in the midst of a large call for change. Change in our policing, change in our governance, change in how we treat this planet. Change is needed. I know you, and you have joined in this call for change. But please know that you cannot ask the larger world to change and then stay comfortably certain that you do not need to change. I don't know what parts of you might need to change, but if you are like me, you might need to start unpacking how white supremacy culture and how racism have shaped and harmed you. This work can be very disturbing, disruptive, distressing. Do not go it alone. And this is why, this time more than ever, we will find that the work of this fellowship is to tend to one another through all of this change. And to do this work with integrity, we need to be ready to examine our own notions about what is right, what is normal. And we need to be challenged to grow this faith for the liberation of those who are here and those who are yet to come. We cannot do this work in anger. We cannot do this work alone. But this is our work. May we have the courage to take it up. Blessed be.
Usually at this time in the service is where we make our offerings. If you have made a pledge or wish to make a pledge or a contribution, you can simply mail it into our office, or you can make it online. There's a donate button on our YouTube landing page and on our website, uuamarillo.org. On the home page in the upper right corner, you'll find a blue donate button that will take you to a place where you can donate securely through PayPal. If you have made a financial pledge for this year, please keep your pledge up. While we are not meeting in person, some groups are still meeting. On Mondays, the Nothing Much Buddhist group will continue to meet at 7:30 through Zoom. Please check their Facebook group for more information. Our UU Adult Religious Education class is still meeting at 10 a.m. using Zoom. If you are interested in attending this class, please contact Lydia Miller. If you are on Facebook and want to stay in touch with one another, we have a group called Beloved Community. Please let Lydia or NELL know if you are interested in joining this group. On it, we're posting games, artwork, music, and sweet messages. You are welcome to drop in for after-dinner coffee on Tuesday at 7 p.m. or join her for tea time at 4 p.m. on Thursday. For more information, check the newsletter, visit the Beloved Community group, or reach out to NELL directly. Calling all dads! Calling all dads! Next Sunday is Father's Day, and to celebrate, we are dedicating our worship service to dad jokes. If you're a dad, please record a video of yourself telling your best dad joke. If you're a kid, record a video of you telling your dad's best or worst dad joke. Then send the video to Larry, myself, or Reverend NELL, and we'll be able to include them throughout the service. You can send those to techteam@uuamarillo.org. And you know what? After this, I need to go to the refrigerator, get my milk, and charge it, because it's down to 1%. Looking for a fun way to start your week? Join John Hintz in watching Miss Richfield 1981's Bingo live stream. It's free, family-friendly, drag queen fun. With Bingo, contact John Hintz or go to the Beloved Community page to find a link to join the 7 p.m. Zoom on Mondays. Also, in the future, keep an eye out for our upcoming Summer TED Talk series. Throughout July and August, we'll have a weekly online gathering to watch a TED Talk together and then discuss the ideas presented. There are lots of people that go into making these recordings happen. I'd like to thank everybody that takes a part in recording, preparing, and uploading, and even watching these recordings with each other. Thanks, guys. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we come again together.
All right. I'm going to do Spirit of Life a little different than I usually do it. Let's see how this works out. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life Wings set me free, Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
May the fellowship of this hour touch and move our lives until we come again together.
As we close this time and you go out into this world, please take these words with you. You are essential to creating this astonishing moment. You are part of all creation, perishing, and recreation. You are beautiful. You are beloved. You belong. Go in peace.